This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. Joining me now is John Brummett, looking far superior to me with his coat and tie on versus me having lost my blazer and not knowing where it is. John, good to see you.
Well, good to be here. I'm sorry you're not up to my sartorial splendor, but I'm just trying to dress better that we're getting back out in hopes that maybe I can qualify for an in-person interview one of these weeks. Because Zooming is close to wearing me out, as I think it is much of the world. Right. But at your convenience, of course. I don't mean to be a complainer.
We will have you back in studio next week. You just asked for it, so there we go. So.
Well, maybe. Hope so. All right.
All right. Let's run through some Talk Business and Politics poll numbers. Always interesting to sort through some of those. You've had a chance to read through the crosstabs too. Let's begin with Senator John Boozman. A 30% approval rating in his job performance versus 39% disapprove. Yet no one seems to think Senator Boozman is really in any kind of hard place politically. What's your take?
Well, I noticed that yesterday. Those numbers would be alarming in a normal world, in a normal situation. But I watched yesterday, and your guys, Barth and Kuhn, both said, now then that's just John Boozman. He keeps a low profile. He goes under the radar. He has a high, I guess it's assumed that the high level of ignorance about him, or the high level of unfamiliarity, translates to votes for him once people figure out he's the incumbent senator who voted with Trump most of the time. And I suspect that's true. I, like them, look at these numbers and say, there's something going on here in regard to the way the people of Arkansas are looking at all politicians. He's such a neutral, bland person. The 30% approval I can get, the lack of familiarity I could get, but why are these 39%? Why do they not like him? And I don't quite have an answer for that, except it may be a general dislike of politicians. But for some reason, I seem to be unable to articulate. I don't have any real serious thought that he is in trouble. I think I've seen him dominate in political races against Blanche Lincoln, and in a big Republican primary, I guess it was 2010, once a big field without a runoff. And he hadn't done anything to warrant these high negative ratings. I think he'll be all right somehow.
Governor Asa Hutchinson has a 52 to 36% job approval rating. That is significantly down from a 69%, I think 23% approved, disapprove in October of last year. Lots of reasons why that could be the case, but the governor's not running for anything in terms of re-election, but nonetheless, he might have fared better than anybody else in this political poll with 52-36.
I think he did, and that was the point I was going to make. Maybe when we got to Sarah Sanders, but I'll make it now. He's way down from where he was because of, at one time he had those BB and Huckabee-like governor popularity numbers. He's way down, but his approval rating of 52 is 9 points higher than Sarah Sanders. It's higher by 17 points than the legislature. His negatives as a known quantity are 4 points less than Boozman's, a largely unknown quantity. So 52-35, he's hurting. He's not hurting nearly as much as was reflected in a recent poll out of a Southern Democratic group that had him underwater. I don't know what that was all about, and I tend to trust your poll as usual. Makes more sense. So he's down, and you would think he would be down because of this tumultuous legislative session, because he's dared to take on Trump. But he's still at 52, which would be bad, except everything is relative, and he's doing better than anybody else in Arkansas right now, which is kind of heartening to me, because I'm kind of to be far to his left, I'm actually kind of an Asa guy. I like his pragmatic governing and the way he tries to finesse his way through a lot of this extremism that's going on, and the national profile he has accepted and as sort of an anti-Trump or someone resistant to Trump. And yet he's, as Arkansas politicians are faring right now, he's the cream of the crop.
I think another interesting point on his numbers is that he does well with independents and Democrats,
Right.
and not as well as some Republican candidates do with Republicans. Nonetheless, he's above water with all of those different partisan political groups, which is unusual for an Arkansas governor.
It is, and that's a very good point. You mentioned yesterday in a conversation that maybe I shouldn't quote you on this, but I'm gonna, that your general reading of the poll is that people are highly displeased with politicians in general right now, and that reflects that the two bases are absolutely contemptuous of each other and demonize each other. Then it reflects also that people more or less in the center, like I like to claim for myself, are sick of both sides and of the dysfunction and of the reliance on the extremist views and the money and the base and those sorts of things. And we can't even get a simple infrastructure bill done. Asa, as you point out, is doing a little better. He's above 50 because whatever he sustains, but because he's not just playing to the bases like most are. So he doesn't get all the negatives in the middle. Some of the folks in the middle kind of like him and like the way he tries to cut this pretty fine in terms of his governing. So I think that's a very good observation as to why he would be doing a little bit better. He doesn't get the combined negativity of the opposing base plus the disgruntled center. He's got a little in common with the disgruntled center, it looks to me like.
Your 135 friends in the Arkansas legislature are not faring as well in public opinion, about a 45% disapproval rating, which is significantly higher than we've ever seen in previous polling. But you mentioned the contentious legislative session we've just come out of. It's not that surprising that their negatives would be that high.
I was unaware that, and I know you just told the truth, and you have empirical data to back it up, that this was notably higher than anything we've ever seen in terms of a legislature's general approval or disapproval rating. I suppose that's so, and 45% is high. But the observation I made instantly upon reading that, and that I'm making in a column tomorrow, is that this is a long Arkansas tradition for people to complain about the legislature. It has never reflected itself in major turnover among individual legislators because people tend to like their own legislator and not equate their own legislator with the legislative activity they see in Little Rock. It's an odd thing. So, and plus, this is sort of a legislative general rating statewide is interesting, and I'm glad to see it because I'm negative about the legislature too. But the legislature itself is made up of 135 different circumstances, so it doesn't matter that the statewide number is negative toward I would say extreme right legislators like Bob Ballinger and Trent Garner and Robin Lundstrom. What matters is how they fare in their own districts, and their own districts are not microcosms of the state. They're all different. So to me, this was interesting, and I know the Common Ground Arkansas people are heartened by these numbers. They think people are saying they want common ground problem solvers and not extremists. I hope they're right, and I wish them success. And I wrote about them on Sunday. But it's calculus here. It's not simple math on how the legislature can be changed.
All right, lastly, let's talk about the two GOP candidates for Arkansas governor. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, 43-41 with her favorability versus unfavorability ratings. Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, 31-41. I asked these questions as favorable, unfavorable, because we couldn't really do job performance for Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and I wanted to get a dual read on the two candidates there. What's your takeaway from that? Is Sarah Sanders in a healthy position at 43-41?
Actually, there's no way 43-41 is healthy. It's not horrible compared to what Boozman, and certainly not Rutledge, who's upside down. I mean, 43-41. But I've, as someone who is deeply offended by this Trumpian takeover of the state of which she is the agent, and as one who's been writing of her utter inevitability, which I figure is probably still true, I was surprised and somewhat heartened by those numbers. They're about within your margin for error. There, we can say there are as many people in your poll in your statistically sound sample who don't like her as like her. That would indicate that she would have trouble in the general election, except she has $5 million and rising. And her campaign is all about not running against whoever the Democrat is or an independent candidate. It's running against Joe Biden and the socialists and the cancel culturalists and the abortionists and the Guatemalans who are coming for us. And I figure that number, her competitive position against a Democrat will be better than this 43-41. In other words, I think she'll do better running against Joe Biden than running for herself. I think she knows that. She's a political operative, and that's what she's been doing and going to be doing. But I feel a little better about the state of Arkansas seeing that number, because I have been extremely concerned about the Trumpian domination of the state, and that suggests there's some resistance out there. And then you may want to ask me about the support, about the belief of whether the election was stolen from Trump or whether Biden won fair and square. You didn't ask me about that, but I will tell you, 38% who believe it's stolen would be a high number of people who don't trust our democracy, except I'm heartened by that too, because I was figuring it would be higher. Half the people, plus a few, accept the outcome of the election in a state that is heavily Fox News and Newsmax and Trumpian. So there's some of my conventional wisdom has been eroded by these numbers, which I found mildly and oddly comforting.
All right. He's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to get his take. John, thank you so much.
Thank you, my man. I'll see you in person next week if you say so. Okay.
Consider it a date.
All right. Bye.